Hey, this is Josh with New Review coming at you with the last 4 episodes of Wrecked. I know it's been a few weeks since they ended their season, but yeah, I just want to talk about it. So these last 4 episodes largely took place on the pirate ship, and so and they seem to each have a very singular focus. Um, so I'm gonna start with the first episode they were on the boat. And we get a little backstory on the boat. Apparently, it was a Red Hot Chili Peppers tribute cruise, which Scott seemed to be pretty happy about when they got on the ship. Um, and everyone was starting to explore and go through the cabins. And then Chet came out and after taking a shower, and people just rushed to go take showers until there was just no water left. And there was a difference between the cleans and the dirties. And it created a very interesting dynamic because Owen and Flo were on opposite sides, and they had this little budding relationship starting, which Danny wasn't too happy about. But Danny started out, and I'll just focus on that group first. Then I'll get into the cabin group. And this little class division was created. The dirties had to stay where the food was first divvied out, and ate there with bare hands because the cleans took all the silverware. The cleans went to another dining hall where all the desserts were, and they took those. And Owen tried to go get some silverware, but of course the cleans were like, "No, you silly people." They actually started to sound like stuffy British people, which was kind of funny. And so that fomented a little bit of resentment and rebellion, which eventually ended with the dirties getting the cleans dirty. And it was actually really like a really funny parody of a battle scene, which was very entertaining to watch. And it seemed that everything was going fine. They were getting ready to. Everything was all set to go home. Which was really helped out by by a few individuals going to the cabin, the pilot's cabin to get everything going. Pack and Danny and a third individual whose name I forget, but he's like the conservative redneck caricature kind of character. Um, and Pack and him seem to connect because Pack's Indian and his brother-in-law, sister, one of his in-laws is Indian as well, and they connected over like the Indian wedding and Indian culture, which was a really interesting way to connect for those two characters because Pack's Indian and he was originally mistaken for something else, I think, by this guy, and it seemed based on the character development from the earlier in the season and the rest of the series, he was a little conservative, held some would say backwards beliefs, and some, meaning most. So that was an interesting way for them to connect. And then at the end, he said it was great because there were no Mexicans. And Pac's like, "Yep, that's what I thought. I'm gonna go get food." He's like, "Yep, go. See you there." So that was, very funny. The next episode kind of capitalized on Scott proposing to Kate. Okay. God, I should have done this earlier. Jess. Jess. Her name was Jess. think it's Todd. Todd. It was Todd, actually, not Scott. Todd from Scottsdale. Anyways, so they get married, and Owen and Florence get into a little bit of a fight, and so that leads Owen to go stag with Danny, and Danny's super stoked about that, which makes it a very, very interesting dynamic, because throughout the entire wedding, Owen's super pissed because Flo went with what was his name? Went with the guy who had been basically stalker in love with Flo. What was his name? Corey. Yeah, Corey. And he was the officiant at the wedding. And so Flo used Corey, and Danny used, and Owen used Karen to kind of make each other jealous. And Karen was super on board. Corey didn't know what was going on. Karen figured it out, and then, started making out with him. That made Flo angry. Jess and Todd got super blasted, so did Danny. And Danny kind of inspired Corey to do something to fight for Flo. So that was an issue. Because at the end of the episode, a mysterious hooded figure threw grenades into the engine room, which stopped the ship. And then the next episode is figuring out who did it, led by Danny, who had a dick drawn on his face because he passed out. And they tried to figure out who it was, and they recreated the conga line. And Corey was seeming a little suspicious. Maybe he was the one who did it. Like, I could tell. I figured it's probably gonna be Corey. Kind of telegraphed that pretty well. And he was trying to cover his tracks, and it was revealed that Owen was the only one not in the conga line. So they went to his room, and they found this little journal, and it appears in flashback that Corey wrote an entire journal and planted that in a bandolier in Owen's room to kind of frame him, which seemed to work. They locked him in a brig, and Danny figured it out late while they were there, and so he got locked in the brig. All while this is going on, Karen and Steve are trying to fix the... while the wedding was going on, Steve, Pack, and Chet were fighting over a lot of money. Alright, back to the rest of it. Steve and Karen were trying to fix the engine, so Steve went to go get a generator down in the generator room with like spare one. And it turns out that the original New Zealand lover of the Barracuda wasn't dead, but chained up in the generator room, which was kind of funny. And Steve and it was Luther? Yeah, Luther kind of connected, believed that they were both pretty cool guys. They're not. They're both pretty lame. And they discover first that the ship is sinking. Then Danny, Owen, and Corey. And then Corey goes to the group and says, "Hey, the ship's sinking." And they got away. Because my head's all cracked up and bloody. So that's the end of that episode. Then the next episode is trying to get off the ship. A lot of the survivors start fighting each other to get on lifeboats. And then Karen, Pack, Chet, Jess, and Todd get on one. Corey and Florence originally are on the same one, but Flo goes to go find Owen and Danny. But she's a little suspicious. Corey goes to find her. Although he gets armed with Uzi. Um, and Florence finds the key, gets them out. Danny had told Owen to dislocate his shoulder so he could reach the key because it was just out of reach. That did not work, so that was funny. And so for the entirety of the rest of the episode, they're being chased by Corey, who's trying to kill them. They eventually get to the wedding reception hall, and Owen and Danny distracts Corey by taking off his pants and doing what Flo did, only she did it with bra. And they cut the string for a giant chili pepper, and it kills Corey. So they get all on the lifeboat. So does Steve and Luther. And while they're on it, apparently Pac had hidden the money that him, Chet, and Steve were fighting over. And apparently Chet is not as chill as much of a chill hippie as we had assumed. Because yeah, a little bit of the old Chester from Scottsdale still is in there. So yeah, that was fun. And they eventually get to an island that is not the island they were originally on. And Luther is super happy. He's free. He's jump roping with his chain. And then he blows up because he stepped on a landmine. And then it's revealed that this island is like the deadliest game. And Emma, I was wrong. Emma is dead. She's a trophy now. It's a little weird seeing a waxy version of her head. So yeah, it's a pretty funny season. Good comedic timing. Good callbacks to previous jokes. And previous bits. It's revealed Chet may have killed someone before, which is kind of creepy and scary. Especially now that he's on the deadliest game island. This seems like a really interesting season that's coming up ahead. I hope that it's renewed and they get to shoot the season because I'd really like to see the combination between Deadliest Game and Wrecked, or aka Lost Parody. So this was a good season. I'm looking forward to next season. This is Joshua with New Review signing.